No marriage registration means you have no rights, Marcus smirked, lounging on our leather couch with an air of superiority that made my skin crawl. Jessica and I have discussed it, and she'll be moving in next week. You can take the guest room or leave. Your choice. I stood in our living room, my living room, gripping my coffee mug so tightly my knuckles turned white. At 34, I never imagined my husband of 8 years would be sitting there, casually telling me his 23-year-old girlfriend was replacing me in my own home. You really think it's that simple? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. No marriage certificate means I just disappear. He laughed, that condescending sound I'd grown to hate over the past year. Exactly. I checked with my lawyer. Without official registration, you're just someone who's been living here. Jessica and I are starting fresh, and legally, you can't stop us. I set my mug down carefully on the coffee table, the same table I picked out when we first moved in. Marcus had insisted we didn't need to register our marriage back then. Why waste money on paperwork? He'd said. We know we're committed to each other. Now I understood the real reason. When does Jessica arrive? I asked, walking toward my home office. Next Tuesday, he replied, clearly pleased with my apparent acceptance. She's bringing her designer furniture. This place needs a younger woman's touch. I closed my office door behind me, my hands trembling as I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside lay a manila envelope I put there 3 years ago, when I first suspected Marcus was hiding something. I'd hired a private investigator then, not to follow Marcus, but to look into our property records. The PI had discovered something interesting. Marcus hadn't actually bought this house as he claimed. His uncle had left it to him in a will. But there was a crucial detail Marcus either didn't know or had forgotten. I pulled out the document and read the words I'd memorized long ago. Property to be held in trust until marriage is legally registered. There was more, about how the house would revert to other beneficiaries if certain conditions weren't met. But that first line was all that mattered now. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica herself. Can't wait to redecorate. Hope you're not too heartbroken. I smiled for the first time that day. Marcus had been so focused on using the lack of marriage registration against me. He'd never bothered to read his uncle's will properly. The house wasn't his to give away, and Tuesday was going to be very interesting. Walking back to the living room, I found Marcus on the phone, probably with Jessica, discussing their plans for my home. He looked up as I approached, his expression smug. One question, I said, holding the envelope behind my back. Did you ever actually read your Uncle Robert's will? The full version, I mean. His brow furrowed slightly. What does that have to do with anything? Everything, actually. I pulled out the document and held it up. Because according to this, you don't own this house. Not legally, not until you register a marriage, and since you never did. The color drained from his face as I placed the document on the coffee table. That's impossible, he whispered, reaching for the papers with shaking hands. Your uncle was old-fashioned. I continued, enjoying the way Marcus's confidence crumbled with each word. He believed in doing things properly. Marriage, registration, all of it. Without that, the house belongs to the trust. And guess who I spoke to last week? Marcus looked up at me, realization dawning in his eyes. You didn't. The trustees were very interested to learn about your situation. They'll be here Tuesday too. Perfect timing, don't you think the next few days were a masterclass in watching someone unravel? Marcus spent hours on the phone with his lawyer, his voice growing increasingly desperate as he realized the trap he'd laid for me had snapped shut around him instead. There has to be a way around this, he hissed into his phone, pacing our kitchen. I've been living here for 10 years. I sat at the breakfast bar, calmly sipping my morning coffee. 8 years, I corrected. You rented before that, remember? He shot me a venomous look. This is all your fault. You went behind my back, dug up private family documents. Public records, actually, I cut in. Your uncle's will is filed with the county. Anyone can look it up. I just did my homework. His phone buzzed again. Probably Jessica. She'd been texting constantly since yesterday, demanding updates. Their perfect plan was falling apart, and she wasn't taking it well. Jessica's already given notice on her apartment, Marcus said, trying a different approach. His voice softened, attempting the charm that used to work on me. Be reasonable. We can figure something out, split the value maybe. I raised an eyebrow. Split what value? You don't own anything to split. The trustees were very clear. Without a legally registered marriage, you're just a tenant who's been living here rent-free. The doorbell rang, making Marcus jump. I checked my watch. Right on time. That'll be Mr. Patterson from the trust, I said, standing up. He wanted to do a preliminary inspection before Tuesday. Marcus grabbed my arm as I passed. Wait. We can fix this. We could register our marriage now quickly. I gently removed his hand. You already announced your intentions to move your girlfriend in. Pretty sure that violates the spirit of the marriage requirement. I walked to the door, leaving him standing there, face ashen. Mr. Patterson was exactly as I remembered from our meeting last week, elderly, impeccably dressed, and radiating no-nonsense efficiency. Mrs. Walker, he greeted me formally, using my maiden name. Everything in order. Come in, I said, leading him to the living room where Marcus stood frozen. Mr. Patterson, this is Marcus. Marcus, this is your uncle's estate trustee. The look Mr. Patterson gave Marcus could have frosted glass. Ah yes, the nephew who thought he could circumvent his uncle's wishes. He pulled out a folder. I've brought the relevant documents. Your uncle was quite specific about his expectations for this property. Marcus sank onto the couch, all pretense of control evaporating. Uncle Robert wanted me to have this house. He told me. He wanted you to have a proper marriage and family here, Mr. Patterson corrected, not to use it as a bachelor pad while playing house with various young ladies. I bit back a smile at Marcus's expression. Mr. Patterson had done his research thoroughly. The trust's position is clear, he continued, laying out papers on the coffee table. You had 8 years to fulfill the conditions of inheritance. You chose not to. Therefore, the property reverts to the trust's control. Marcus's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, then quickly looked away. I caught a glimpse of Jessica's message. The movers are all booked. Can't wait. How long do I have? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. The trust requires vacant possession by next Friday. Mr. Patterson replied. That's 10 days to make alternative arrangements. He turned to me. Mrs. Walker, given the circumstances, the trust is prepared to offer you a short-term lease at a favorable rate, should you wish to stay. I smiled, thinking of the apartment I'd already viewed. Thank you, but I have other plans. Marcus's head snapped up. You knew this was coming. You've been planning this. Unlike you, I said quietly, I believe in being prepared. After Mr. Patterson left, Marcus sat in silence for a long time, staring at nothing. Finally he looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. When did you figure it out? He asked. About the house. 3 years ago. About Jessica. Last year, when you started pushing back against registering our marriage. You got sloppy with your texts. He nodded slowly. And he waited all this time? I waited until you showed me exactly who you are, I replied. Until you tried to use the lack of registration against me. Karma's interesting that way. Tuesday arrived with all the drama I expected. I was in the kitchen, packing the last of my cookware, when I heard the commotion outside. Jessica had arrived with her moving truck, right on schedule. What do you mean we can't move in? Her shrill voice carried through the open window. Marcus, you promised me this house. I walked to the front door just in time to see Mr. Patterson and 2 other trustees intercepting Jessica and her movers. Marcus stood to the side, looking like he wanted to disappear into the perfectly manicured lawn he'd always been so proud of. Miss, Mr. Patterson was saying, his tone clipped, this property is under trust management. No unauthorized occupancy will be permitted. Jessica turned to Marcus, her perfectly made-up face contorting with rage. You said this was handled. You said your wife had no rights. Technically, I called out from the doorway, he was right about that part. I don't have any rights to the house. I smiled sweetly. But neither does he. The moving truck driver was already backing out of the driveway, clearly wanting no part of this situation. Jessica's designer furniture would have to find another home. This is ridiculous. Jessica stamped her foot, looking every bit the 23-year-old she was. I gave up my apartment. I bought new furniture. Marcus, do something. But Marcus just stood there, defeated. He'd spent the last week frantically searching for loopholes, calling in favors from lawyer friends, even trying to contact other family members who might influence the trust. Nothing had worked. The trust position is final, Mr. Patterson stated firmly. The property must be vacated by Friday. Any attempts to occupy it without authorization will result in legal action. Jessica's face crumpled as reality finally sank in. But where am I supposed to go? That's not our concern, Mr. Patterson replied. Turning to me, his expression softened slightly. Mrs. Walker, I trust you'll be finished moving out by tomorrow? I nodded. Everything's almost packed. The lease on my new apartment starts today. Marcus's head snapped up. You've already found a place. Like I said, I replied, I believe in being prepared. Later that evening, as I packed the last of my personal belongings, Marcus made one final attempt to talk. We could still fix this, he said, hovering in the doorway of what had been our bedroom. Register the marriage, make it official. We could have the house back. I closed my suitcase and turned to face him. You still don't get it, do you? This was never about the house. It was about respect, about building a life with someone who values you. You failed at both. What about Jessica? He asked quietly. What about her? You promised her something you didn't own, just like you promised me a marriage you never intended to honor. He had no response to that. The next morning, I handed my keys to Mr. Patterson. My new apartment was smaller but bright and airy, with a balcony perfect for the herb garden I'd always wanted to start. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed with a message from my friend Deanne. Just drove by the house. Jessica's furniture is sitting in Marcus's parents' driveway. His mom looks furious. I smiled, imagining the scene. Marcus had always relied on his parents bailing him out of trouble, but a house full of modern furniture and an angry girlfriend might be beyond even their capacity for cleanup. A week later, I ran to Jessica at a local cafe. She was alone, stirring her coffee absently. He's living in his parents' garage, she said when she saw me. Claims he's between properties right now. She laughed bitterly. I should have known when he wouldn't make anything official with me either. Some lessons are expensive, I replied, grabbing my to-go order. But they're worth learning. 3 months later, I received a formal letter from the trust. They had sold the house to a young couple who, ironically, had just registered their marriage. Mr. Patterson included a personal note. Your ex-husband tried to contest the sale. The judge laughed him out of court. Standing on my balcony that evening, tending to my flourishing herb garden, I felt nothing but peace. Marcus had tried to use the lack of marriage registration against me, thinking it left me powerless. Instead, it had revealed exactly who we both were. Him, a man trying to cheat the system, and me, someone strong enough to walk away and build something better. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about showing someone that their attempt to take advantage of you becomes the very thing that sets you free.